Scout is a quite clever card game for 2 to 5 players. If you have played Big 2 or Chapsa or any of these alternate names according to Wikipedia, then you might wanna stick around as I think you will like this game as well. To start, each player will be dealt the same number of these cards. When you get your set of cards, you can have a look at all of them, but do not rearrange any of these cards as this is a big part of the game. The only thing you can do right now to change your hand is by completely rotating your entire hand 180 degrees like so, which will give you a completely different set of hand as you only look at the big numbers on the top left. The smaller ones below it tells you what number you would have gotten if you have rotated the card around. This therefore gives you 2 choices of starting hands. Each player will then also be given this 1 use token resembling a car, and lastly, the first player marker is given to whoever has got this 1-2 card, which in this case would be us. We are now ready to play the game. The objective of the game is to get the most points. You can generally do this by achieving one of the 2 round ending conditions. The first one is to get rid of all of the cards in your hand. With this endgame goal in mind, let's first see how your turns would usually play out. Scout plays turn by turn clockwise, and let's say that it is now your turn. There are only 2 actions available in the game, which are the show and scout action, but you can only choose to do 1 action for your turn. Show lets you play cards from your hand, while scout lets you take a card that is in play. Since we are the first player, no cards have been played yet, and so we cannot do the scout action for this turn. This leaves us with the show or playing cards action. There are 3 kinds of card combinations that you can play. The first and easiest one to play is a single card. Because there is currently no other card in play, you can simply select any one card from your hand. The second card combination that you can play is a set of consecutive numbers. Think of this as the straight hand from poker, but you are not required to play exactly 5 cards. So something like 5, 6 and 7 or 3 and 2 would both be acceptable. Though to play this sequence, these cards have to be next to each other in your hand. So no, you cannot play these 3 to make a sequence because they are not next to each other. And the numbers also have to be in the correct order, so something like 4, 6, 5 like this is not allowed. They have to be 4, 5, 6 or 6, 5, 4. Though you still can play the 6 and 5 together. And finally, the last card type that you can play is a duplicate. Simply, it's playing the same numbered cards from your hand. And just like the consecutive sequence, the cards have to be next to each other in your hand. Playing cards will let you move the remaining cards closer to each other, which lets you set up for a better sequence. Okay, so let's say that we played these cards, and it is the next player clockwise's turn. Since there is already an active set of cards in play, this player can now choose to do the scout action. Scouting lets you take exactly 1 card from the active set and add it to your hand. You are given a lot of freedom when you do this. You can literally slot the card in any position in your hand, and you can also flip the card around to use the other number on it. Though if there were 3 or more cards on the active set, you can only take 1 card from either ends of that set. Also, every time someone scouts, the owner of the active set would get a point for the card that was taken. And it goes without saying that scouting also lets you build up your hand. So that's it. You take a card and it ends your turn. Alternatively, this player could also have done the show action. Though since there is already an active set in play, you have to 1-up the active set, meaning you have to play a stronger set of cards. The rule of 1-upping is pretty simple. First off, if you played more cards than the active set, your set is stronger. For example, this single 3 is beaten by this set of double 4s, which gets beaten by this set of 1, 2, 3. This is simply because it's 1 versus 2 versus 3 cards. The more cards you have, the stronger your set. However, if you have the same number of cards, we'll then have to see what kind of set was played. Simply, duplicates win over consecutive sets. But if both the set type and the number of cards are the same, then whoever has got the highest numbered card will win. So with these rules in mind, let's go back to our scenario. The only way we can beat the active set in this case is by playing this 4, 5, 6 sequence from our hand. You know, because 3 card set is stronger than 2. And no, you cannot beat it with just this 4, 5 or 7, 8 because duplicates are stronger than consecutives. Anyways, let's go ahead and play this 4, 5, 6 sequence. After playing the cards out, you'll get to take all of the cards in the set that you just beat and flip all of them upside down. This will become points for you, and each card is worth 1 point. Finally, the set you just played will then become the new active set for the next player to interact. The game continues turn by turn clockwise until someone fulfills one of these endgame conditions as I have mentioned. I'm sure the first one is quite self-explanatory at this point. The second one though, playing an unbeatable hand, is a lot more tricky. Basically, you would want to play a good set of cards, usually a rather huge one like this, so that no one can beat your card, forcing them all to scout. If you manage to achieve this, you'll end the game immediately. Let's do a turn-by-turn example of this, as there are some important interactions that I can show you better this way. Okay, so let's say that green just played this set and it's now yellow's turn. Sadly for yellow, she does not have a way to beat the active set, so she has no choice but to scout and take one of these cards, say this one. As green player player's card was scouted, he then gets 1 point. It's now Red's turn to play, but sadly he doesn't even have enough cards to beat the active set. Notice though how the active set gets weaker or easier to beat every time someone scouts. One card is already missing from it, and as Red player can only scout as well, the active set will get even smaller. After giving Green yet another point for the scout, it is now up to Blue to beat the active set. If Blue scouts as well, the game will immediately end as Blue is the only player that has not scouted yet. Blue's cards does not look promising at all, but believe it or not, there is a way to beat the active set. Remember this token that you get before the game starts? Well, if you use it by flipping it upside down, you get to do both the scout and show action only for that turn. So for this scenario, what Blue can do is first scout this card, which again gives Green a point while also weakening the active set further. You then place the scouted card this way in your hand to form a sequence and immediately show these cards to defeat the active set. Since Green's active set was beaten by Blue, the endgame condition isn't fulfilled and the game continues on. But just to wrap up this teaching part of the video, let's say that Blue has no more cards in his hand after he played that last sequence. This will end the round as he instead fulfills the first condition. At the end of the round, everyone counts their total points from these upside down cards and tokens that they accumulated. Remember, they are 1 point each. If you've got any remaining cards in your hand though, they become -1 point each. Although this penalty does not apply to the player that ended that round. This exception might seem a bit useless because you know, Blue had already played all of the cards from his hand in the previous example. Well, this exception is actually for people who fulfilled the second endgame condition. If Green had played the big sequence and ended the round, the remaining cards in his hand would just be counted as 0 points. Anyways, your points for that round will then be transferred into these numbered point tokens to keep track between rounds, and everyone gets to refresh their one use token so they can be used again for the next round. You keep playing as many rounds as the number of players. Whoever has got the most points at the end will be the winner. So how good or bad is Scout? The game is actually pretty freaking good. It's simple, fast, and has a good amount of complexity / interesting decisions in it. It definitely has a wide appeal whether you have a casual or hardcore group. I also really like the mechanic where the position of the card in your hand matters, as it feels quite unique and sets the game apart from being too similar to Big 2. But this game isn't perfect and there are certainly some downsides. First off, yes, it is possible for you to get an amazing starting hand that will most likely win you the round, but you have to be really lucky for this to happen. Not only do these cards have to be in the right position together in your hand, but they also have to be in the right orientation. So definitely possible, but quite unlikely. Secondly, the game is worst at 3 players. It is playable, but you will eventually find out that the rounds tend to be a lot shorter in 3-player games. There are 2 things that contributes to this. In 3-player games, you have to remove all cards that has the number 10. This will effectively remove number 10 from all 3-player games, which will make it easier for everyone to get or build a big sequence. At the same time, there are just not as many players that can weaken the active set in 3-player games. For example, if Blue throws in a 4-card sequence like this, you only have 1 player that can scout and take 1 card off before it gets to the final player that has to beat it or it will end the round. In comparison, if you had 4 players, there is 1 extra player that can scout and take off 1 more card. Therefore, it is a lot easier to fulfill the goal of playing an unbeatable hand in 3-player games. In fact, this is most likely how your games will end in 3-player games. Adding these 2 things together, you end up having a lot of games that ends abruptly and early, from players playing bigger hands that is not as easily countered. And while we are on this topic, the opposite problem is also true for 5-player games, where it is almost impossible for you to fulfill the same goal because there are just too many players that can scout your active set away. But I wasn't too bothered by this because it doesn't cause the game to abruptly end. 4 is definitely the ideal player count, followed by 5, and if you have no other games, then maybe play with 3. 2-player games has its own special rules which I haven't covered. Instead, I'll write a super condensed rules and thoughts in the comments down below. Overall, Scout is a pretty solid card game and I would give it an 8 out of 10. If you like the mechanic where the position of the card in your hand matters, you might also want to check Photograph out. Otherwise, if you just like card games, then I would recommend checking Skull King out. Anyways, that's all for this review. Check out my channel for more reviews like this and leave a comment down below. That's it, see ya!